Hi, I'm Terry Brock, and you are in for a treat today as I talk to a combat veteran who has worked with life and dealt with some rather terrible odds against him and his compatriots. And he's here to tell us about how he can do it. His name is Oritse Uku. He is a captain in the Army, or at least was, and now he has written a book talking about this, of taking the Boy Scouts to war. And he joins us now from his home there in Chicago. Oritse, good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Terry. It's great to be speaking with you.
Well, I just finished reading your book of Taking the Boy Scouts to War. Matter of fact, I think you've got a copy of that with you right there, don't you? Hold that up and show us that. Yeah, Taking the Boy Scouts to War. Tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what the book is about as well.
Absolutely. Well, so I, upon graduating college, joined the Army as a U.S. Army officer. I actually joined just before September 11th. So I graduated basic training on September 14th, 2001. Signed up for a peacetime Army, spent my entire career in the Army at war. It ended up serving overseas for several years before going to Afghanistan. But when I went there, it ended up being the summation of everything that we were trained for, the camaraderie that came out of that. All the lessons that you had learned in training, that you'd learned in life, suddenly became very cemented in combat situations where you don't really have the time to necessarily think. You do what you're trained to do. You do what you know is right, and hopefully come out of the other end okay.
Yeah, it's a whole different way of living when you're going through that. What you've experienced in your life has made tremendous impact on you, obviously, and it's a different world than it was on September the 10th, 2001, and we're seeing now. And so you were deployed over to, I understand, Afghanistan, Korea, and other places. Tell us a little bit about your Army experience.
Yeah, so I ended up spending a year in South Korea as the intel officer for an attack helicopter squadron. Spent 3 years in Germany as an intel officer in an intel brigade. Ended up leaving the Army for a little bit after I applied for special forces and didn't get selected. It happens to the best of us. And then while I was in business school, I was recalled to the Army at the beginning of my final semester. Managed to get a stay so that I could actually graduate with my MBA, and then reported back to duty. And it was funny because I felt like when I left the Army, it took about 3 months to get used to being a civilian, and when I went back to the Army, it took about 2 weeks to get used to being an officer again.
Wow.
It's like no other job. It becomes part of who you are.
Yeah. Well, now, when you were there in Afghanistan, you talk about some of the experiences you have, particularly one that was quite profound. And I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that, what happened at a battle of Girani. And am I pronouncing that correctly, Girani?
Yes, Girani.
Yeah, Girani. Tell us what led to that, and then what you did on that. Particularly, I understand before that when you had an ambush and how you dealt with that.
Absolutely. Well, so actually, I was not involved with the ambush. I was the objective. So I was going down to Farah province, to Farah city, to join a ETT team. That's a training team, basically.
What does ETT stand for?
Engagement Training Team.
Okay.
So the entire point is that we were supposed to train an Afghan battalion so that after U.S. forces left, that they would be able to operate and fight the Taliban on their own. It's a 12-man team. It's a mission that conventional forces took over from special forces. And I was going down there to join the team, which was commanded by my good friend Chris Garvin. So I was at a base nearby in Bala Baluk, and my friend's team was coming to pick me up. So call it 10 Americans in 3 trucks, and they were ambushed by the Taliban in those 3 trucks. They fought through the ambush. Not only did they not lose anybody, but they just decimated the ambushing force.
Yeah, I
It's
remember reading
really
that in your book. It was profoundly impactful to me. Well, you did. I understand you were outnumbered 10 to 1, or that group was outnumbered 10 to 1. Is that correct?
well, that's later. That's later at the Girani itself.
Oh, okay,
That
Geronimo
day they
itself.
were
Thank you.
probably outnumbered 3 or 4 to 1.
Okay.
Um, but it's, you know, it's doctrine for us. When you're ambushed, you fight through it. And that's exactly what they did. So not only did they win, but they really embarrassed the attacking Taliban force. So they
Yes.
fought through that to come pick me up. And the very next day, that Taliban force, which had been hugely embarrassed by that loss, started taking over villages in the within the province nearby, and that's what led to us heading out for the Battle of Girani.
Yes, I love Geronimo. I particularly like what you said there, that the application and the principle that the Army teaches is you don't cower, but instead you attack through it. Tell us how that is an important concept and why we need to embrace that and how we can embrace that in our own lives.
Well, one thing that the Army's most certainly taught me in my 6.5 years is that something always goes wrong. Hopefully, quality planning minimizes what goes wrong, but something always goes wrong. So you just have to deal with it. And when it comes to ambushes specifically, that an ambush is something that someone else has planned. So you're always in a bad position. They pick that location because it's disadvantageous to you. And hunkering down, hiding behind vehicles, like that's not going to work. So the only way anyone has real hope of surviving an ambush is to fight through it.
Yeah, I like that. A very good principle that we can apply to ourselves. Well, now, of course, one of the pivotal points in the book that you talk about that's very informative and also instructional for us and motivational, I would say, is what happened in the Battle of Girani. Tell us a little bit about that, what preceded it, and what happened with you and your comrades as you went through it.
Absolutely. So we got woken up and told that the Taliban had taken over a few villages, and so we went out there with another American team and with the Afghan battalion. And as we arrived, we just see streams of Afghan civilians just fleeing, like entire families riding tractors or cars or just walking, anything that they could manage. And as we're sitting there waiting for, collecting information, trying to figure out how we want to proceed, I see 3 Afghan police trucks just drive down this dirt road. And I remember saying it to I can't really recall if I said it to myself or really so other people could hear me, but I said, that looks like a terrible idea. And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, those trucks just got pummeled by Taliban fire. So at that point, we kind of scrapped our mission. My commander, Chris Garvin, and a truck from one of the other teams said, "All right, we're going to go rescue those guys." And so, it's not something that we'd planned to do, but we ended up going down this dirt road trying to save these police officers. It was a terrible approach, but we were just kind of playing the cards we were dealt, and that was the beginning of what really was, call it a 12-hour fight, from beginning to end.
That makes for a long experience, one that will live with you for all your life. And so as you look back on that now that you're out of the Army and you are now in civilian life in a prestigious financial position right now, tell us what lessons you have learned from that and what lessons that others can apply from that.
Well, the first lesson that always comes to me is that whatever is going on in life, good or bad, it's probably not that bad. Like I've managed to see, not just in combat missions, but in humanitarian assistance missions, what life going badly looks like for people in other portions of the world. We as Americans are very privileged. There's, there's people from all over the world who would love to come to the States, even if it meant being poor in the United States. That's how privileged we are. So that's always the first lesson that comes to mind, that, you know, if you're feeling sorry for yourself on any given particular day, it's not quite as bad as you think. Another lesson is like we were just talking about with that ambush is the idea that the best way through most problems and most dire situations is to fight through it. It's uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy. You know, it's going to have some negative consequences, but it generally works better than just hunkering down and hoping for the best. And the third one really is just the power of camaraderie and teamship and a close-knit group. Like I said, what ended up being a 12-hour fight, it was really about the first 3 hours that we were generally outnumbered 10-1. We didn't realize it at the time, but we found that afterwards. But we had a close-knit group of individuals, highly trained, highly motivated individuals, that when we reached a very adverse situation, you knew you could depend on the guy to your right and your left, and you worked through it. There's most certainly a huge element of fear. Anyone who says they weren't scared in combat is, you know, probably either crazy or lying. But you know, that's really the basis of courage. You know, proceeding forward and doing what you have to do, even though you're scared.
Yeah, I think that's a very good principle in life, that we're going to have those ambushes. As you say, your quality planning can help to diminish some of those ambushes and some of the problems, but they're going to happen. This is the way things work on this planet. And we have it to a very small extent, nothing compared to what you confronted in combat. But those lessons that you have are quite profound, and we really appreciate what you have done. Oritse, you have literally put your life on the line, and we appreciate that for what you've done there and for writing the book. And if someone says, hey, I want to get a copy of this book, and they want to get in touch with you, 2 questions. What's the best way to get the book? And secondly, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, the best way to get the book right now is on Amazon.com.
And hold that book up again, please, if you don't mind. We want to make sure people can see that. Yeah, it's Taking the Boy Scouts to War. I think a very appropriate title. Very appropriate title. You can get it on Amazon. And someone wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way would probably be to reach out via our Facebook page, facebook.com/Taking the Boy Scouts to War, or as well that has a link to my personal, well, my public Facebook page as well, or you can always go to the website, takingtheboyscoutstowar.com.
takingtheboyscoutstowar.com. Well, a profound book, one that has a lot of information, a lot of instruction, and I would say even motivation there. Thank you again for what you've done, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.